Hi everybody, my name is Ryan Ruby and I am presenting a lesson for ninth grade English. I'm going to be presenting an overview of my lesson and talking about the different moves that I make from the beginning of the lesson all the way through just prior to the student presentations. Hello everybody, this is Ryan Ruby. I'm presenting my signature assignment, which is a lesson for ninth grade English language arts. For this lesson, we're going to be covering writing introductions to argument and position essays. It's going to be about a 3-day lesson, and my 2 main objectives are for students to be able to identify the 8 main essay introduction types, and then to be able to construct discrete argumentative essay introductions exemplifying each introduction type. So they're actually going to learn the types and then apply them in their actual writing. So the focus standard for this lesson is Writing Standard 1, which is writing arguments. And for this segment of the unit, we're focusing specifically on introduction of topics or thesis statements. This is the beginning of a larger writing unit, and so this is just going to cover the introductory part of it. So on day 1, we're going to work on accessing prior knowledge and introductory information. To introduce the lesson, I'm going to have students come in, get a Chromebook, and that will be posted on the focus board. And they will connect to a Kahoot that I have set up, which is reviewing the parts of the argument essay. Now, they've been writing argument essays for several years now, and so they should be familiar with the terminology, but we're going to just go back and review that to ensure that we're all starting at the same place, and if not, we can fill in those gaps. After that, students are going to do a quick write in which they're going to open a document with a prompt posted on it, and for 3 minutes they're going to write in response to that prompt. Now it's 3 minutes of solid writing. I'm not looking for form, I'm not looking for correctness, however I do encourage them to try to write correctly, but this is really more about generating ideas right now, because they are going to come back and revisit this a little bit later in the lesson. Once they've finished writing their quick write, they're going to share their response to the prompt with their shoulder partner, and after about 2 minutes of that, where each person has about a minute to speak, we're going to share. I'm going to have 2 students, either through the use of equity cards or with volunteers, share their response to the prompt. After that, we're going to transition into the information part of the lesson, where I'm going to go over the 8 different ways to introduce an essay, along with the different parts of the essay introduction. I use Google Slides and I use presenter mode when I have students take these kinds of notes. That way they have their computers in front of them, they're connected to my slideshow, and not only are they taking notes, and they also have the ability to make comments and ask questions for clarity if necessary. Embedded within the slideshow is a practice slide, and this is where I'm going to have them go back and open that document where they wrote their quick write, and they're going to revisit their original ideas, and they're going to present their ideas in an introduction using one of those 8 introduction types we talked about. In the slide, I have clear directions where I ask them to make sure that they include a background or a hook, one of those 8 types that we talked about, as well as their central claim and at least 2 main points just for this practice. So they're not going to write this essay, but they are going to write the introduction for it. Once they've completed their essays, I'm going to have them share their response, their introduction, with their shoulder partner, with whom they've spoken already. And I'm going to have them do a little bit of revision. Now, typically, the revision part of the writing process occurs after the draft, but we do revision throughout. So because essays are made up of different parts, it's good to look at those different parts and revise them for clarity, revise them for coherence. And so I give clear directions, as you can see here, on how my students do revision. And so they'll share it with each other, they'll go through those steps, and then they'll share it with me. And I can use this as a formative assessment to see where they are in terms of just generative writing. After they've done the introduction and revision, they'll know when they see the words ticket out the door, it's time to return their computers to the cart. They'll come back, they'll take out a piece of paper, and they will answer these two questions. The first question is connected to that first objective, or actually both of these are. What are the three main parts of an argumentative or persuasive essay introduction? And then for them to list at least 4 of the 8 ways to write an interest-generating introduction. I'm not asking for all 8 right now because they just got that information, but they will study them that evening, and then we'll go back and I'll give them a quiz tomorrow over all of that information as an introductory activity. So on days 2 and 3, they're going to start with that introductory quiz, but then they're going to be moving into groups to start working on their introduction writing. I use Google Forms for quizzes. They're really helpful. The information comes back in a nice Google Sheet where I can make some quick decisions about reteaching or intervention. Students are going to move out of the quiz and they're going to be moving into their mixed ability groups. I have pre-populated those mixed ability groups based on language variances, primarily, and then also looking at learning styles and modalities, as well as students with special needs, and making sure that these are groups that have the best fits in terms of differentiation and being able to work off of each other's strengths. So rather than giving the students one prompt, I'm going to actually have them choose their own prompt, because writing is a learning activity and generative writing is really better for student learning than just prescriptive essay writing. And so students will have access to the New York Times 401 prompts for argumentative writing. I'll go over the different categories with them briefly, but I want them working together to decide on a prompt that they feel they can write their best introduction for. So for their introduction project, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be working together. They're going to decide on a prompt together, and then they are each going to write at least one introduction representative of those 8 introduction types. So everyone's going to be responsible for writing an introduction. However, because they are in groups of 5, there's going to be a couple students who are responsible for writing at least 2 introductions. Along with having them write those different introductions, I actually have jobs assigned or roles assigned to each group member. So the end product of this is going to be a booklet, and the students are going to combine all of their work into a booklet representative of the 8 introduction types. The 5 different roles I have are the supervisor, and they're going to be the person sort of facilitating the timeline and enforcing the group norms. The fact checker is going to make sure that all of the information presented in all the introductions is accurate. The designer is the person who's going to be designing the final product. So rather than just have this be a sort of a static text document, I'm going to actually have them use some visual representation in order to not just tell me what the different 8 introductions are doing, but to show me as well. The editor is going to be responsible for copy editing the final documents for spelling, grammar, and mechanics. And then finally, the moderator is the person who's going to lead the gallery walk presentation. So once these are done, I have 4 big whiteboards in my room that I split in 2. And each whiteboard is going to be sort of a parking lot where each student is going to present their work. And the moderator is going to be the person who is sort of the guide as each group walks through and does the gallery walk and looks at the different presentations. And the moderator is going to talk about their prompt, going to talk about the process that they went through, and give just a general overview of what those different introductions look like. On the introductions project, I have clear deadlines posted as well, and the supervisor is going to be responsible for keeping to those. So again, I assigned group roles for this part of the project based on their learning modalities, and as we progress through the unit, So, for example, the next part of the unit is going to be the body. I'm going to switch up the roles, and so students are going to have to get a little bit out of their comfort zones and take on different roles as they go through this process. Uh, on the last day, students are going to be publishing, as I mentioned before. They're going to be sharing their document with me once it's edited, revised, and they feel really good about it. And I'll print those out for them in full color, and then they can post them to their boards as they get ready for the gallery walk. And the gallery walk essentially is the moderators are going to stay at their station, and so the moderators, unfortunately, are not going to have as much access to the different examples from the different groups, but the remainders of the groups are going to be rotating through each of those 8 different groups to look at their different presentations and listen to their description of process, and also get some ideas as to how they approached writing those introductions. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to have my students do a reflection. I always have them do reflections as they write. And this is for the purpose of, again, formative assessment, and it's sort of self-assessment. I get a sense of how comfortable they are with this part of the lesson, and I can get a sense of the students I need to specifically target and go back and intervene with and reteach, or maybe take a different approach with them in order to get them to feel more comfortable with writing these different introductions.